We know that certain communities are rich with resources in parks, recreation areas, bike paths, and others are not. Youth and their families are healthier when their schools and communities provide food and safe places to play and move around. Okay. This is basically what the goals and objectives and strategies have been, but just think about adopting and implementing complete street policies, plans, and practices to increase access to opportunities to walk, bike, and roll. And it's funny because this is the 5th of a 5-year grant. This is actually the 3rd consecutive State Department of Health grant that I've worked under. And they continue to take the evidence and the learnings from the prior ones and update them, change the language, change the trends, and based on a lot of the research. And so we just got the announcement for the new round, and even the language from just complete streets, which really the Department of Health didn't understand a whole lot about. They just knew that if there's redesigning of streets when there's work done, that it could be conducive to physical activity. But the new language is activity-friendly routes and connecting routes to destinations. So the Department of Health is getting a little more comfortable with promoting physical activity and working with partners like yourselves. So the Complete Street initiatives, Complete Streets are designed with everyone in mind. I only put a couple slides in about this because I assume that we all know what this is. Maybe not. Complete Streets are designed with everyone in mind. They allow for safe access for all users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, public transportation users, and motorists, no matter their age or ability. And it should integrate people and places into the planning, design, construction, operation, and maintenance. And there's no one-size-fits-all. You can tell from the panelists this morning that every community is so unique and has different needs. So this is where Complete Streets really links directly to health. There's a huge impact on every decision that's made in these community development efforts that will impact our health. Obviously safety, and walking around doing the audits where you're going to be hit by the car because you can't get across the street fast enough, or there's a train track, but the street is too wide, or cars are turning. So safety is a huge issue. Pedestrian safety and driver safety. Bicyclist safety. I don't know about you, but when I'm in Manhattan, I have no desire to ride a bike or even walk because the bicyclists are going too fast. My opinion. So safety, of course, air quality. Not only asthma, which is the likely thought, but even risks of heart disease, lung disease are compromised with air quality. And you know, they're not in my backyard. Looking at the communities that I listed, the Wyandanch, the Brentwood. I know Wyandanch, I spend a lot of time there, and I know that some of the local advocates have been fighting for air quality issues for years. Not all related to cars, but you know, that's where things get dumped that expel all kinds of air. Noise, physical activity, and that's really the crux of the Complete Street, where the wheelchair people, where strollers, where bicyclists, where walkers can move around, where there's destinations where you can walk across a colorful, inviting crosswalk to get to a park. And then I think the most important is the equitable access. And this goes to the food too, where it's just not available to everybody in every single community. And when I say it, it's the park, it's the safe place to play or move. It's also the supermarket. We're dealing with communities that are considered food deserts because they just don't have access. I still have a couple more minutes? I know. 2 minutes, okay. So what I just wanted to show you is what we're doing, goals, work with municipalities to help implement projects, work with communities to create support and buy-in for Complete Streets, work with the community. It's really about community engagement. And I think that the partnership that Vision Long Island and we have with the grant is we've already been working in some of these communities. Now they have far many, and when I say they, Alyssa and Tawan and Eric have far many relationships, but in the 5 communities that we've been working with, we have direct relationships with community leaders and the school leaders. Of course, they can provide the technical assistance assistance, the expertise, the leadership, the data collection, the evaluation, and it's about the cultivating the relationships, the trust. So just very quickly, the 4 communities that I happen to have pictures of, this is Roosevelt. There's a lot of youth engagement. Now, Choice for All is very active in Roosevelt. In fact, on the bottom right, that's the CEO, Jacob Dixon, who was part of a walking college and even got a recognition. This was a statewide effort where I participated too, but I didn't win. But he won from Roosevelt, and they are implementing a Vision Zero policy in 2020. He's very invested in the community, strong leadership. They've also involved the school. The students were actually doing walking audits, and they have, oh, she's getting up. Oh, but here's a picture of Alyssa. They also, the link between the school and the community, because the schools don't have enough gym space, so it's linking physical education with walking around the building. This is Central Islip. We worked with Bernard, AARP, and Vision, and did the walking audit. That was my first experience, and some of those avenues are pretty nasty, scary. Not nasty, it's a beautiful community. And then Wyandanch Walks, and I met Deborah there, who's presenting somewhere. Wyandanch Walks, us, and Vision Long Island, and as I said, I've worked closely with Wyandanch over years. So we actually, even before Vision, we had done some community walks. We want to change the norm. There are nice places to walk. There's actually several parks. There's the beautiful plaza. And then when I talk about walking at the plaza, they have the farmers market, they have free yoga, free dance, free Zumba over the summer. Tomorrow, the ice skating rink is opening up. Angie Carpenter had mentioned that. And then we also did the walking audit, a lot of presentations, and again, it's tapping into the leaders. Shinnecock Nation, Lauren could not be here today. She's the transportation director from the reservation, but they've gotten some grants, and they've done some creative work with the reservation. You can see a safe crosswalk, and there's children involved with a lesson. There's my contact information, which you can't read. My other 2 colleagues, Susan's here in another room, and we do have a Facebook page, Healthy Schools and Communities. So I'll take questions after we're done.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll do all questions at the end.
Thank you.
Everybody. All right, thank you. Chairs, I guess.
We'll find out.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, I'm gonna stand up. So, well, thanks for having me. I'm gonna talk about the walkability study in Lindenhurst. But before I start, I want to just quickly reflect on the opening plenary. And really 2 things that excited me. So one to the positive, one to the negative. Positive, I mean, those high school students, they were great. They had just the right questions. Awesome to hear that. They're really hard to engage, that age group. So I'm glad they're here. I don't think they're from South anybody, but he was older. Okay, so they're not here, but okay. The questions were great, and it's all about engaging the community. So that's what I'm going to talk about here too. What excited me to the negative a little bit was, when the moderator just casually mentioned nobody walks in Long Island, nobody questions that. It's just like, oh, yeah, we don't walk, right? Okay, so we drive, right? And the other thing, the biggest applause, as far as I could hear, was when the supervisor of Huntington announced the building of a parking lot for $12 million and the suspension of parking fees. So that created a lot of applause. I don't get it. That's the stuff that attracts more driving, more cars in downtown. So actually the exact opposite of what we're trying to achieve. And you're spending $12 million and you're raising funds for that. So there we go. So Lindenhurst is going a different way. walkability on Long Island, so you have to give them credit for that. That's a gutsy move. GPI carried out the walkability study for them. I'll show you how we did it, what we did. Well, tracing back a little bit. So this is, of course, also part of the Downtown Revitalization Initiative for Lindenhurst. So going the way of promoting walkability is unique. I mean, it's like everybody knows walking is healthy, but nobody does it, right? It's like telling your kids to eat vegetables, but you know they want to do it. So you have to get them on board. This is what we do in Lindenhurst too. We get the community on board, try to buy into this walkability theme. There are a lot of benefits associated with walking. We heard it before in the previous presentation. Generally speaking, in downtowns, it is an economic element. It creates economic benefits. Places that are more walkable are more attractive, attract more businesses. People want to go there. That's the whole point. So you have to make that happen. Overall, it's a safety aspect. Health, we don't have to talk about. Everybody knows it's healthy to walk. For the environment, obviously, if you get people out of their cars, air pollution aspects, that's healthy. And socially also. People are on the street, you have a vibrant community that creates social benefits, community character, and so forth. So those are the benefits. And really, it's walking then as a catalyst of revitalization. So that's what the village of Lindenhurst got. So they want to have, the downtown is not that great for the last decade, so that's changing. I don't want to credit this all to the walkability study, but a little bit. There are new businesses coming in, left and right actually. It's becoming safer, hopefully, from what we will implement, or what they will implement based on the study. But that's what it is. They want to address safety first. You know, it's not just a slogan. That's really dangerous to walk in downtown Lindenhurst, so that has to be addressed first. They also want to be a healthy community. They want to be multimodal. So walking is only one mode, obviously. We're not condemning driving. Driving is essential on Long Island and in many places. But walking also goes along with providing bicycle infrastructure. Am I not loud enough? Providing bicycle infrastructure and also improving transit. So that goes hand in hand, and accessibility to services as well. So if you can, ideally, coming back to parking, if you park once and then you walk and you can access all the services, all the businesses, all the functions that a downtown offers, then you are there. But you don't want people to drive around from one stop to the other and so forth. So that's the accessibility part. So Lindenhurst got money from Suffolk County to carry out this study. We got a grant. GPI carried it out. It took a year. We engaged the community. I'll show you how we did it. The plan was actually adopted in August unanimously by the village board. And so these are just the general steps that you go through from existing conditions. You take account of what's there. There are 3.6 miles of sidewalks missing, not just in bad condition, but missing to close the gap in the downtown area. There's no single bike lane. They didn't need us to find out that there's nothing, right? So transit is really just the LIRR. There is a bus service, but the bus stops are not even marked properly. So there's a lot to do. So that's what we did in existing conditions there. We showed the best practices from other places around the country, even internationally, and developed our recommendation. But here is that we did a lot of community outreach to get the buy-in from the community, and not everybody intuitively understands that there's a big benefit of walking. So we did an online public engagement tool, not just meeting with the people, but giving them a chance to voice their opinion online. So they could do this here. You could drop pins. We got over 400 responses, suggestions. You see the hotspot, that's the Main Street, Wellwood Avenue, other spots as well. We took account of all of these comments. We did Linden Walks, we heard that before, and that's really a fantastic tool. We did 6 walks, you learn a lot. We had between 10 and 20 participants. We offered per walk. We offer different routes, and key, if you do this also at different times of the day, because if you walk at night, it's a completely different story. You hear different things from people, and so that's important. We did visualizations, because we just don't, talking about stuff is not getting to the point, you know, you want to show people what you have in mind. So this is the main intersection in Lindenhurst. It's difficult to cross, so this is what we did in terms of an animation. We showed them the bulb outs, reducing the crossing distance, creating a pedestrian island, taking away a right turn here, which is useless, giving more people space here, so that people could actually see it and comment on something that we want to suggest to them. This is currently they have the village square, and this is the service road next to the train station. It's leading to some parking lots, but really not used much, so we suggested to expand the whole square, making this a people space, all in the context of creating more accessibility and walkability. And this is a safety issue. You see here we have no crosswalks in a critical section where people cross actually near the village square. So this is a rapidly flashing beacon, RRFB, rectangular also. And again, the bulb outs, reducing crossing distances. So people could see how this looks in their community. This is actually really, this is realistic. This is, everybody knows this is North Railroad Avenue when you're in that community. Last slide. So, as I said, the study is adopted. Now it has to be implemented. It's not something for the shelf. But Linden has already got a grant from Suffolk County, $350,000 Jumpstart grant. They want to invest it in safety, so there will be crosswalks on Railroad Avenue, and I hope there will be more. Obviously, they're going for the downtown revitalization initiative and get the big bucks, and then can implement all the recommendations. We're also working on a master plan for them now, so that will look into land use, economic development, and transportation, not just walkability, but also cycling and transit and so forth. So, all right, that's it. Spread through it. These are our contact information.
Okay, thank you. My name is Steve Normandin. I'm a managing director of NB5, we're a consulting engineering firm here on Long Island. And what I want to show today, I've been at this summit before, and there's always great plans, great thoughts, and great talk, and great lobbying, so it's been wonderful. But now, all that work that is really coming into fruition, and I just want to show eye candy of projects that have been built within the last year that everything that's been talked about is really, really happening. So I just wanted to be that part of this talk, that it is happening, and we pride ourselves in from planning to construction closeout, and helping municipalities, villages and towns, the counties, the state, everyone you saw today at the dais, we're working for them. So I'll go through just 10 real quick projects. This is one up, and we're talking about Main Streets. This is Main Street up in Port Washington. Recently completed project. Was a streetscape style project, but we really incorporated complete street aspects. And we went from visioning, with the cartoons and the visualizations and everything. But what I want to show you today is really the before and the after. So we visualized bulb outs at specific locations, kind of celebrating the corners where all the action takes place and all the crossings. And the bottom left is some of the renderings that we showed to the town. And then we came up with concepts, and in this particular case, what was unique to this Main Street is the narrow sidewalks that are there, and this is all we have to work with. So the biggest thing was to tell them all the constraints that we have, and the clutter and everything that's in the sidewalk area, and as well as the storefronts. So what we came up with, just aesthetically, was to make a narrow band of brick running along the top left, you can see, and give you that both visual and physical aspect of the sidewalk is actually wider than it is. Typically, there's a 2-foot utility or brick strip that's in there with the trash cans and everything. So we really wanted to clean up the sidewalk, create the space for the pedestrians, and then give them room to cross, with select locations where we have these bulb-outs. Then we worked down for the town of Babylon, the COPEG visioning and revitalizations that are happening down there. Development is happening. And once again, this was a grant from the Department of State to implement some of the improvements right on Great Neck Road in downtown COPEG. So unique aspects here, there was a development, the COPEG Commons. They came in, one of the first developments, and they developed a sidewalk with a very unique permeable paver in black color, which you really don't see very often. It's done by a private development. But the problem down there in COPEG has been so many hodgepodge streetscapes. We just want to unify the entire corridor itself. So we took it upon that last development, our first development that was in, and kind of just extruded that throughout. Problem with that is we had it's a county road, and there's maintenance, you have meetings, and what they can and cannot maintain. All comes down to maintenance. That's now our first question to the clients and the other partnering agencies. What can you live with? What can you maintain? So, tricky way about that, we used colored concrete, which was acceptable to Suffolk County. One of the materials that they can maintain or is low maintenance. Give you that aspect that it looked like the development that came in, and provided that as a streetscape element down the corridor. And the town also wanted to celebrate the crosswalks on the town roads with some sort of colorized crosswalks. Once again, we did colored concrete on the crosswalks there. Then we worked with the town of Islip. They had gotten grant money from the TEP, this is the old Transportation Enhancements Program, 80% funded federally. This was recently completed, and it connects the Bayshore train station to the Fire Island ferries. That corridor is heavily traveled in terms of walking and people getting off the train and coming down, spending their weekends at the ferry and then over to Fire Island. So that this connection in downtown Bayshore also growing in its downtown, this was a nice little backbone to spur that activity. So what we had done there is reconstruct the entire residential roadway, had 3 different types of roadways along. There was the residential section up on the top left, then at the bottom is the Fire Island ferry terminal itself with all the activity and the congestion, the chaos that we had to contend with there. And then up in the middle sections by the old Toro College, which will be redeveloped, another different section where it's more commercial. So what we did is connect, from the ferry terminal, cleaned up the entire circulation pattern that had happened down there. And showing here on the right was really a key component was a turnaround. They call it like a slingshot because there's pickup and drop off that's happening on the one side for that ferry terminal, and there's pickup and drop off that occurs on the other side. Another different vendor, another terminal company working there, got them all together, got the town together, and had a workable solution. And what this does is really with signage, you can drop off on the one hand side and not just stop in the middle and make a K-turn and go back. We've developed the people that now use and come every weekend or every season now know that they can come, swing around, and drop off cleanly on both sides of the roadway. In addition to that, once you have that drop off, we have some raised crosswalks to safely get the pedestrians from one side to the other. 2 minutes. This was Path to the Park GOSTER funded project. Give a shout out to LK McLean. They were the prime consultant. We were their sub assisting their work. just another way, I know this is not complete streets, but this was resiliency, governor's office recovery money to stabilize the slope along the riverside. We've really, on top, doubled down on that and created a shared use path with all sorts of amenities connecting the school, the residential community, and a park to the north. Not complete streets, when you think of it as parking lots, who wants to park, but you have to go to these college campuses on Long Island are kind of commuter type of campuses. So we see parking lots as being now places to make places, and as soon as you get out of your car, you're now pedestrian, and you need a complete street. So this was the vision, if you've gone over to Nassau Community College lately, transformed into a large pedestrian plaza, a roundabout, and centrally located spines for walkways, covered walkways, solar lighting, and sustainable elements. Town of Brookhaven just completed, once again, this was DASNY money for a $1 million road project, doubled down with multimodal funding from the state DOT, complete streets, sidewalks, bike lanes for the campus right adjacent to Stony Brook Road. Then we have Division Zero in New York City. This is what we're doing there, taking those traffic islands, those little triangular traffic islands, doubling their size and creating a pedestrian plaza. This project, 80% of the material in the middle is all permeable, paved permeable material, and created a park twice the size of the refuge island that was there before. Working on DRIs, this is one of them, downtown Westbury. The mayor was talking all about that. This is the actual Post Avenue reconstruction of all of the sidewalk work. We're in the planning and the final design stages with that. And then downtown Hicksville was also mentioned. We're working with Vision Long Island, LK McLean as well, in studying this disaster area. It's the Hicksville Triangle. It's been studied and studied. So we are the complete streets component. Everybody studied it, planned it. However, we have the backbone of the traffic study, the accident analysis, and design, feasible design components, as opposed to the previous studies. People are looking for things to get done. And they have $10 million. They needed this component to really provide feasible options, and the supervisor wants to move forward in building down there. This all goes in terms of its DRI and its redevelopment and its rezoning. So we had done engineering studies of accidents and travels to and from the parking lots, and we have a public meeting next month, so I wanted to divulge all of our wonderful proposals, but one of which is this underlying type of project, basically taking the railroad track itself and creating a space underneath that, giving better lighting, improved walkability. It is a component that you have hundreds of pedestrians walking, east and west, crossing over 106, 107, and Jerusalem Avenue, and we're going to provide road diets and pedestrian initiatives to get those commuters safely to and from, as well as connections to the downtown business district. And just lastly, state has a wonderful program, Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, and that funding is now coming down to the locals. We're working with Suffolk County, improving 125 intersections, upgrading all the push buttons and all the ramps throughout the county that doesn't have them at this moment. So that's what we're working on now, as well as with GBI on the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan for the state, regions 8, 10, and 11. They are doing the same thing. This money is also coming down to Nassau County and coming down to Town of Brookhaven with grant awards that just happened last year. I think that's all I got. Thank you very much.
I just have a clarifying question. What is Vision Zero?
It's an initiative that I think was one of the mayors before, Mayor Bloomberg, maybe.
Yeah.
Basically, no accidents, no fatalities, reduction of fatalities to zero.
Right, yeah, so eliminate. I think we're going to go over a couple minutes since we started so late, but I want to have room for a few questions at the end.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Chris D'Antonio. I'm a planner with Suffolk County Economic Development and Planning. I'm honored to be here to speak on behalf of my director, Jonathan Keys, who unfortunately was unable to join us today. And I'm going to speak a little bit about the county's ongoing work and really some of the exciting work that we've had happen over the course of the past year when it comes to hiking, biking, and active transportation in the county. So one of the most exciting announcements that we had was the arrival of the County Bike Share Program. All right, this was a program that was bought at no cost to the county by Zagster, the company that runs the system. They offer a bike share system named Pace, and that's the product in essence that's been launched in currently 3 communities across the island. And we view it as crucial for offering last mile connectivity and also providing easy access for anyone coming to visit the county and any residents within the county, whether it's to transit stations, parks, beaches, downtowns, employment destinations, and many of those transit-oriented developments that we see, being created all across the island right now. So I covered some of these details already. As I said, it's at no cost to the county. Our title sponsor is Bethpage Federal Credit Union, hence the name of the system is Bethpage Ride, as it's been named. And that has funded the installation of bike share in 4 communities in the island. Currently, we have Babylon, Patchogue, and Hampton Bays. We're hopeful and looking forward to launching in the town of Riverhead as well come the upcoming spring. What we're finding already in some of the early data that we've gotten back on ridership across the system is that people really love Argyle Park in Babylon. It's absolutely like staggering in terms of the data, the amount of people who are going to those bike share stations and then using it to really enjoy the ride around the lake itself. So it's to the credit of the folks in Babylon. If anyone here is working on that, just know it's a magnet among magnets.
GPI stuff.
That being said, the other communities are also seeing notable, use as well. It's, significant that, Patchogue is getting, movement all throughout and around its downtown, down to the waterfront, and Hampton Bays is seeing a lot of activity in Good Ground Park, which is markedly showing the success they've had in planning and creating that new park facility there, just north of Main Street in Hampton Bays. So this past year, we began a new Suffolk County Hike and Bike Master Plan, and this builds on a foundation that was started really back in 1972 with the Suffolk County Hike and Bike Master Plan at that point in time, which saw the opportunity for a regional, connected trail network that spanned the county and gave us kind of the beginning foothold in, well, we have all these wonderful utility corridors that crisscross the island. There's a distinct opportunity to use them to build out this trail network and have it be comprehensive and regional across Suffolk County. And it's really just an early image of the plan itself. It wasn't quite as expansive as what we're currently working on presently, but we're absolutely looking at this and the successes that it has had in the time since it was passed in 1972, as well as some segments of it which have yet to be realized and incorporating that into the current plan. What's especially worth noting is a segment that's going to be under construction over the course of the upcoming year, and that is the North Shore Rail Trail. That'll make use of what was formerly the Long Island Railroad's Wading River branch, heading from Port Jeff out to Wading River, and it's going to occur currently on what is utilized as a utility right-of-way. And it's going to provide a really good, initial case, to support the creation of this network across the rest of the Suffolk County, and hopefully make the argument across the island too. What's worth noting, and I won't travel too much on Grace, but our colleagues at the Trust for Public Land are advocating for the creation of the Empire State Trail, Long Island Greenway, from Eisenhower Park to Brentwood State Park as its first segment. And that's key because so much of that is on power line rights of way right now, which is just this key opportunity in the waiting for both Suffolk and Nassau County. The North Shore Rail Trail is 10 miles long. It's a 10-foot wide shared use path that's going to traverse the entirety of that so that utility power line right away, the former Wading River branch. And it's funded, and it's currently has already broken ground. It's under construction right now. So I'll I'll hasten through the hike and bike master plan a bit. We began earlier this past year with Alta as our main consultant, with the adept project management of our in-house consultant from GPI, Zarati. And we had a rigorous process of public engagement where we went to several pop-up events across the county. We held, at the present, we've held 5 technical advisory committee meetings to assemble input from municipalities and advocacy groups and other involved agencies to ensure that we provide adequate guidance in terms of prioritizing this network and assembling a really good, rigorous network, that everyone can help us all push forward. One of our early tools was a public engagement tool that was online. This online input tool proved to be really useful. We've received a ton of data from various members of the public, just saying, oh, I could use this connection over here. I could use this bike trail over there. There's a sidewalk gap over here. And we use that to assemble this network to just kind of take existing facilities, which there are. There are some folk who do walk and bike in Suffolk County. We learned that over the course of this study, and we were fortunate to do so. It helped fill in, that gap of knowledge of saying, here's points where we could easily connect elements of that network. Our pop-up events were Earthstock at Stony Brook, the SeaTech Eco Carnival, and Port Jeff Run to the brewery. Which you wouldn't think, but we caught a lot of people at the very end who were just hanging out. They just run, so they're like, all right, you have my attention for a few seconds. This is just an image of kind of the early recommendations we've assembled as part of the plan. As of right now, we've seen our consultant accomplish 1 technical memo associated with it. We're currently at work on a series of graphics and zoom-in maps, and then we're expecting the overall plan to be delivered in the early portion of next year. And this is just an example of one of the kind of typology recommendations that are going to be built into this report in terms of, kind of grab and go, that you could say for a given situation and a given recommendation, what is our toolbox and what can we specifically deploy in these instances? We're also fortunate to have AKRF as a sub-consultant on the plan to come up with cost estimates and to kind of put these through their paces as well, to like what works in these specific circumstances. That's just an image of kind of what one of the zoom-in maps will likely look like, and it also remarks upon the prioritization criteria that we've worked into, kind of ranking these routes in terms of what makes sense, in terms of routes that connect the entire network county-wide, but also on the basis of safety and connectivity, design criteria, equity criteria, the economic development potential, and the health and environment being built into the consideration of which routes to prioritize to go after first, to try to build out this network in the most equitable, and beneficial way possible. And just as a kind of an add-on to all this, we additionally had a series of Jumpstart Awards that were granted this year by the county legislature, and that entailed a network of bike lanes and some complete streets improvements. We're going to see some painted crosswalks, hopefully in downtown Riverhead. We'll also see a shared use path out in Montauk that will connect the train station with downtown, and additional money is being put towards the Bayshore Bayway project to kind of facilitate its further completion. And I think that's all.
All right, thank you.
Sorry. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Grace Healy, and I'm with the Trust for Public Land. The Trust for Public Land is a national nonprofit, and our mission is to protect land and create parks for people, ensuring healthy communities for generations to come. So across the country, we've done a lot of things. Protected 3.5 million acres, created over 2,000 parks, created 2,000 miles of trails, and in New York, we have been active for over 40 years. You helping me out with the Zoom? It's going on here.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Although it is quite zoomed in. So we've been active in New York for a long time, but today I would like to talk to you all about the Empire State Trail and how we're trying to bring it to Long Island. So the Empire State Trail was announced by Governor Cuomo in 2017, and it's the state's really great, ambitious plan to create new and connect existing trails from Buffalo and Plattsburgh through Albany down to Battery Park at the southern tip of Manhattan. It's a mix of on-road and off-road, and it's a really exciting opportunity to connect the state through, for biking and hiking. The bummer is that it left out Long Island. And as all of you know here in this room, and as everyone has spoken to, Long Islanders need a safe place to walk, bike, and enjoy the outdoors. So the Trust for Public Land kind of saw an opportunity to get involved. Okay, so in 2018, the Trust for Public Land did an overall feasibility study to see would it be possible to extend the Empire State Trail to Long Island. We found that it was, which is great. And basically, we looked mostly at utility corridors as a way to keep the trail primarily off-road. So looking at this map, the greenish blue is all off-road on utility corridors, and then the yellowy orange is where it would have to be on-road, but in a protected bike lane. And then the dotted line is the alternative route that we also found would be feasible if we wanted to build out this network. So in 2019, we really wanted to do a deeper dive on what we kind of have been considering the first phase of this trail, which is we originally had it planned to go from Eisenhower County Park through Bethpage State Park, cross over the county line from Nassau to Suffolk, and extend to Edgewood Oak Brush Plains Preserve. And that's almost entirely in a utility corridor, so it would be almost entirely off-road, which is great. So our goals over the last year were basically to demonstrate that this is feasible, do as much detailed groundwork as possible to figure out any obstacles, and then again to just really get momentum going, build public support. So we did it. We have kind of a detailed version of this phase 1 segment, and we actually extended it. It is now going to be 24 miles long. We decided to extend it to Brentwood State Park because that state park is really close to a Suffolk County Community College campus, and it's also right near where the Hauppauge Industrial Park is going to be going through that redevelopment. So I just want to look at my notes real quick to tell you guys about this. So this trail will connect 13 parks. It goes through 9 communities, which include 250,000 New Yorkers, Long Islanders. And there are 36 schools within 1 mile of the route. It also is within 1 to 3 miles of, I believe, 7 Long Island Railroad stations. So thinking a lot about how can people move through this space in a different way by walking or biking. So to get to implementation of this phase 1 trail segment, there are still some things that we need to do. They're pretty technical, like a LiDAR study, a radiation study, things that LIPA will require for us to implement a trail on a utility corridor. So that's what we're looking to do over the course of the next year and 2021, because we're really excited, and we believe that this pilot will be able to really show that the Empire State Trail can happen on Long Island, and it's doable, it's being done. So lastly, to finish up, I just want to thank all of our supporters, and who isn't on here, who totally should be, is Nassau and Suffolk County have been the most incredible supporters, so helpful, providing us information day in and day out. So just really grateful to be here.
Technically, we've only got 3 minutes left, but I'm going to push it over a couple extra minutes so we can take a few questions. All right, Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed all the presentations, and I have a question on data and dates. I guess on Karen's presentation, you focused on certain communities. My question is, on Long Island or in Suffolk County, do you have any data, let's say, on high school students, how they get to their high school, home to high school and back? So any data on that? I live in a 3-generation household. I have a granddaughter who lives with us. We are about half a mile from two, both high schools in a relatively large district. We're quite walkable, except no one can walk. And the result of being that close is that people don't even use the school buses. Parents have to drive until they will have cars of their own. And we have, and our granddaughter and all of our friends drive to school. Is there any data on how people do that? And the other thing is the question of dates. When do we expect, when can we ever expect, there is a date, of when there will be universal complete streets? I used to ride on my street, I gave it up, I said, no longer safe. No one walks. If you want to go to the next door neighbor, you get in your car, out of your driveway, you drive it, you can't walk. Is there any perception, any idea? Is that 10 years, 20 years? When will we have complete streets where everybody can walk? Everybody can walk.
That is an ambitious goal. Anyone want to take that one on?
Well, I would just respond to the first one about the school data.
Yes.
You know, every school is so unique, literally, and I'm the only one that didn't have this.
Now I can really shout. Every school operates very independently, and every school has its own set of data, and you have to access it, I think, face-to-face, focus group. I talk to administrators. I've spoken at some board meetings and a lot of our wellness meetings about how many students, the schools know the percentage of students that walk or bike or take the bus. So it's not anything that's been gathered in an aggregate. And the policies, for example, I do work closely with Wyandanch. They have a policy a walking policy that far exceeds what the state requirement is, because some of the older school board members felt like every child needed to be safely put on a bus, even though they weren't using the bus, they were walking or biking. So, you know, and now that they're on an austerity budget, of course, it's a little bit different, and it's an opportunity to raise the issue. And there's programs like Safe Routes to School or a walking school bus. You're trying to take baby steps to normalize changes and to make walking something that's more acceptable. So even with walking, taking PTA leaders and the local police, and the local community leaders and the local mayor, and do a walking event to a school one day to show that it's doable, it's feasible, it's safe. But that's, you know, it's like nutrition. I mean, these are huge battles, and we have to change one step at a time. And as far as Universal Complete Street, my only comment would be is that there's so many different governmental levels, and for example, the deliverable for our grant, Creating Healthy Schools and Communities, was to establish a wellness policy in a district that was in compliance with the federal regulations that spoke to physical activity and food. So you pass a policy, big deal, you know, is it being implemented, and what does the implementation look like? So there's so many different dimensions and levels, and I think things have to be done community by community. So I'm sorry I didn't answer either of your questions.
We're working on it.
We've been given an extra 15 minutes, so apparently I need to
Can
rush
I-
you guys as much as I did.
I just want to add to this. Data is not there in the sense we need it. This is not a systematic approach. We don't know how good we are. Long Island always say, okay, it doesn't work here. You know, you show them best practices from around the country or even beyond, and like, yeah, but it wouldn't work here. So we really have to evaluate what's been done here. I think like Nassau County, Suffolk County, they should put this in their grants to make this mandatory. You know, there has to be some kind of not just an evaluation framework, but there has to be an evaluation done of the progress, so we can actually see what works and what doesn't work. People hate it, but because it's an extra effort that takes maybe away from other things, but it helps. I mean, you can really then better see what works and what not.
Any other questions? Okay, okay, we'll start from the left side of the room, okay?
Quick question, kind of specific for Stephen. On the topic of bulb outs, how have you managed the pushback? I'm all for them and shortening the crossing distance and a safe space for pedestrians, but we hear a lot of pushback about drainage, the false argument of losing parking. It's not parking, it's no parking here at the corner, it's a crosswalk. But the drainage issue, the plowing issue, the community doesn't seem to want to get on board with this. So how did you manage in Port Washington especially, and Manhasset, and we're hoping for those as well?
Port Washington, they're still controversial, I've got to be honest with you. They're in, and people are scratching their heads, what do these things do, what are they for? So it's a challenge every day. We just had the same thing in Hicksville. We had proposals for bulb outs on 106, 107 for this part of the complete street study we're doing for Nassau County. And just had a meeting with the technical advisory committee, and the state says, due to maintenance, due to this, take them off of the state roads. So we still have them on the town and the county roads because they've been, believe it or not, more, I don't want to say more progressive than the state has been doing, but it comes down to maintenance and all the things you've mentioned, but it's case by case. You have to show that the trucks can make the movement. You have to talk to the emergency services. So the first meetings we do have is, in addition to the maintenance, is these other operations that are, have issues, which would be emergency services is always big. That's one of the biggest ones, and then the highway maintenance department. But if you could show the data, the turning movement counts with the engineering, AutoCAD, that show that people can make the movements. And then the key is to show other examples. I think that's why I came with the pictures. That you can go around and point to go to Google now, it's been built, and show it's been done.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll come back. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a quick question for Cindy. Has the Vanderbilt Motor Parkway right-of-way been considered for the New York State bikeway through Long Island from Bethpage to Ronkonkoma? It's mostly intact.
Yes, so I have a map I can give you after this, but we definitely took into consideration, and in certain instances, our path is in line with the Motor Parkway path. So yes, is the short answer.
Thank you.
Yes.
I heard a lot this morning about transit-oriented housing. I'm assuming that that's transit into the city on the LIRR, et cetera. Is there any thinking about inter-community transit, public transit on Long Island?
It's probably another panel. There's
I
a
actually go to the transit transportation.
I was gonna say the transportation panel probably have more
But
on
I'm
that.
just, in all
but-
this thinking, you know, you're trying to get rid of cars, you're trying to shift the mindset about driving everywhere. What's going on with public transportation between communities, so we're not so isolated?
I think I could address that at least from the Suffolk County's perspective. That is the principal focus of both the Hike and Bike Master Plan as well as the wider Connect Long Island plan that the county executive has launched. The principal focus on that is not just on getting people west and commuting into the city, but it's really intra-island and intra-county transit and movement among the county. And kind of building these transit-oriented developments that then provide the framework to support the attendant transit services that would go between them. So we have the proposed north-south bus rapid transit routes, like Route 110, Nichols Road, Sagicos, and those are intended to link together areas that are currently experiencing transit-oriented development, like your downtown Patchogue, Stony Brook University, which is set to add potentially another 500 units of student housing on campus, the Ronkonkoma Hub. And then you have Route 110, you have the potential for East Republic transit-oriented development, you know, at the former Republic Station. You have all the work that's going on at Huntington Station and then Huntington Village as well. And you have the potential in Amityville, especially now that the former, I think it's the Brunswick Hospital, site is being looked at for redevelopment with transit-oriented development as well. And the 110 corridor, you're experiencing a tremendous volume of intra-island movement right up and down that whole north-south portion of Suffolk County. And that's not just to our county's benefit, but it's to the island's benefit, because there's countless folks who commute into Suffolk to work in that corridor. So we're very mindful of it, and we have those several initiatives that are definitely looking at that closely.
This is a slightly different perspective, because I'm mostly talking about biking and walking. But I think on one side of things, extending the Empire State Trail to Long Island would be great, because there would be those folks who come out from New York City or come out from Westchester who are doing that 175-mile ride out to Montauk, and you know, that's their Saturday, and those people are really hardcore, and that's really good for tourism and economic development, things like that. But we also want this trail, the Long Island Greenway, to be, you know, where people go for their run after work, and where kids are riding their bikes from their house to Bethpage State Park to go, you know, meet up with their other friends. So we do very much view it as a resource for Long Islanders to use in their own backyards and to get from, you know, whether they're just going a few blocks away or they want to connect to a larger park, but kind of get through communities in a safer way.
Go ahead.
I know this panel focused a lot on walking and biking, and it kind of lacked acknowledgement to bus routes and bus lanes being included in complete streets, and kind of dovetailing on the LIRR connectivity. Are bus routes being looked into, and especially in the winter months when people aren't going to get on their bikes or walk, what sort of solutions are being looked into for those first mile, last mile solutions to bus stops or even LIRR stops and anything like that?
So from Suffolk County's perspective, we have right now an ongoing initiative to improve the quality of our existing bus stops, just to provide, you know, the necessary shelter requirements to suffice to the, you know, the ADA standards for that specific location. But transcending that, County Transit is already looking at their scheduling as well as their stop spacing to try to form a more rigorous service. And this upcoming year, we're going to be launching the next phase of our mobility study, which as a key component of that is going to be looking at the potential restructuring of transit across the county to really, you know, see where can we provide the most robust service and provide the highest quality service to serve the most residents of Suffolk County as well as most folks commuting within Suffolk County or people just journeying here for a day trip. So we are certainly looking at that, and as part of the bus rapid transit routes that are being planned, we currently have Nichols Road and Route 110 that are proceeding underway, you know, either in project development or preliminary engineering. We're going to have the comprehensive redevelopment of station areas for each of those routes, which are going to be high quality stations, mindful of, you know, accessibility requirements, and have already yielded us a toolbox because we created a set of design standards for bus rapid transit stations that can easily fit into complete streets. We just need to build the box out of that.
And then one last question.
Just to add to this, I presented about walkability study, that's right, but in all our plans and strategic plans, we're promoting active transportation, and it's easily thought of as walking and cycling, but we consider transit as an active transportation as well. Because if you use transit, bus, trains, you walk there, some people cycle there, so that's part of it. So just want to make that point that active transportation is really walking, cycling, and transit. And look at it.
Last question? Anyone?
What's the policy for taking bikes on public transportation, like the LIRR and the buses?
The Long Island Railroad currently has a restriction on peak trains where you're not permitted to bring regular standard frame bikes on peak trains. However, on off-peak trains, you can purchase a bike permit for $5 that remains with you permanently, and you can bring a bike on off-peak. However, if you have a collapsible bike, folding bicycle, you can bring them on the trains at any time as long as it's foldable. It's something that I found out when I was commuting back from Queens out to the island. Having a folding bike was very helpful. And then as far as, with folding bicycle, it requires no permit. As far as bringing them on the buses goes, in Suffolk County, they have racks in front of the buses that currently accommodate anywhere from 2 to 3 bikes a piece. And so you can fold down the rack and you can actually place the bike on the bus. There's no additional charge or permit requirement in that instance. It's just you have to be lucky enough that the space is available when the bus arrives.
One thing that we're also considering as we continue to build out our plans is looking at what amenities will be along the Long Island Greenway, and things that we're definitely looking at are bike lockers and bike racks and things like that. That way, maybe it's that you leave your bicycle there, then get on the train, and then, get it on the way back.
All right, thank you everyone for coming. Wrap up, looks like the next panel's coming in, so thanks everyone.